I'm making this video as like a response to the first video. It's kind of an extension of the other video I made about the season in the Garden of Mahurton. So anyways, it's like I was saying, is there a specific way that I'm able to tell if a desire that's in my heart is really just my own desire, or did the Elohim, the Mosai Elohim God, the Mosai Elohim or Mosiah, did he put that desire in my heart? And how am I able to tell the difference between if it's my own desire or if it's a desire that Elohim or Most High Yah has put into my heart? And how do I tell if that desire is really from the Most High? I mean, God, a desire that God put in my heart. How do I know this? I mean, is there a way I can tell? Like, if I have a desire in my heart, how do I know for sure that this is not just my own desire? How do I know that that desire I have for something is not my own desire, or is it the desire of God? And has God put such desire in my heart? I mean, because you have a lot of people, other human beings of all that have that old mentality that they ask questions. Is it a good desire? Is it a good idea? Is it good? Is it good? Well, then it's from the devil, or it's your own desire, or it's evil. Whatever you desire is evil, and that's the old mentality. And sometimes I think the old mentality just, it's possible that the old mentality just doesn't make sense. The old mentality, well, if he seems good or if he feels good, it's evil. And not always, maybe it can be good. I mean, so how do I know for sure if a desire that's been put into my heart, how do I know it's not my own desire, or is a desire that I have for something? Is did God put that desire in my heart? And that's what I struggle with. Because I'd like to know, am I desiring my own thing? Or am I desiring something that God desires for me in my life? Because if I'm desiring to do my own thing, or I'm just desiring to have my own thing, guess what? Can you guess what? I know it will not come to pass, because God will not give me the desires of my heart. The desires of my heart, the only true way that God can give me the desires of my heart, and I know, is that if the desire that's in my heart is what I desire, a desire in my heart. If I desire to have my own thing, or I desire just to do my own thing in life, and it's not God's desire, guess what? It's not going to come to fruition, and I know that. That's why I'm saying, if I have a desire to have something, or if I have a desire to do something in life, whose desire is my desire? Because if it's my desire, guess what? It's not going to come to fruition. Because it's not God's desire. Where if it's God's desire, if what I desire to have, or if I desire to do something like, and it's really God's desire for me in my life, it will come to pass simply because I'm desiring not my own desire, but God's desire. So I'm desiring God's desire. And those are the only desires that are ever going to come to fruition. See, I know that. I know that the only desires that are going to come to fruition in my life are not my own desires, but the Most High's desires for me in my life. Those are the only desires that will ever really come to fruition. If I'm desiring something, if what I desire in life, if I desire to have something or to do something in my life, if I'm desiring something and it's the same desire as what God desires for me in my life, there's a better chance it's going to come to fruition. Because although I have that desire, if it's God's desire, if I'm desiring God's desire that He put in my heart, and if God is one that put that desire there in my heart, it's a better chance it's going to come to fruition because it's not really my desire. It's really God's desire. And so I'm desiring God's desire for me in my life, so it's a better chance it will come to pass. Or if I should desire my own desire to have my own thing, desire to do my own thing, and it's not God's desire for me in my life, it's never going to happen because it's not going to happen because it's only my desire. It's not God's desire, it's only my desire. And so that's why it's never going to happen. But if what I'm desiring to have, or what I'm desiring to do in life, is really God's desire, the better chance is going to come to pass because it seems like it would be my desire, but the truth is, it's really not my desire. It's really God's desire, and I know in a way, I know that that doesn't make sense. How can a desire that's in my heart, how when I desire to do something, or to be something, or if I desire to have something, and if it's not my desire, well, I know that doesn't make sense. It's like, how can you desire, how can that desire that's in your heart not be your desire. Well, I know it does make sense, but it's so hard to explain. I mean, I can explain, but I guess I know it doesn't make sense. But what I'm trying to say is, if there's just a desire in my heart, if I have a desire for something or to do something or to be something, the thing is, it can't be my desire, or if it is my own desire, it's just never gonna happen because it's not the desire of God. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just not God's desire. But if something I'd like to have, something I'd like to do, something I'd like to be, if I have that desire in my heart, and it's really God's desire that He put in my heart, then I know it's not gonna make sense, and I'm gonna warn you right now, it's just not gonna make sense. That if I desire something, or I desire to be something, or if I desire to have something, if it's really God's desire for me in my life, and so then what it means is it's not my desire. Really it's not my desire, it's God's desire that He put that in my heart, and that's why I'm desiring it. I'm desiring it because God put that desire in my heart. He planted the seeds of that desire. So it will come to fruition because it's not my desire, but God's desire. And so I would like to be very sure, I'd like to be real sure that whatever I desire in life, it's really God's desire, because that's the only way it's going to happen if it's God's desire. Because if it's my own desire, the truth is, it's just not going to happen unless it's really God's desire. And the only real way I know that is like if I desire something in life, the only way that desire in my heart's ever gonna, and the only way that my desire will ever come to fruition is if it's God's desire for me in my life. If I could put it another way, if I'm desiring the same thing that God is desiring, it's a better chance that it's going to come to fruition. Better chance it will come to fruition if it's God's desire. And so if I'm desiring God, the same thing that God is desiring, it's better chance it will come to fruition. But if I'm desiring something that God is not desiring for me, that chances it's never going to happen because I'm desiring it, but it's not God's desire for me. I have a difficult time explaining, but what I'm trying to say is if I desire something, it has to be something that God desires. He desires the same thing I desire. Because if God does not desire the same thing I'm desiring, it's never gonna come to fruition, is what I'm trying to say. It's just never gonna come to fruition. So, if I desire something in life, whatever I desire in life, it can't be my desire, or else if it's really my own desire and it's not God's desire, or it's not the same thing that God desires for me in my life, it will never come to pass. So it cannot be my desire. It's got to be God's desire. This way, if it's God's desire and not my desire, the truth is, I know there's a better chance that, it will come to pass. Because it's not really my desire, it's God's desire. And the only reason this is not going to make sense, I know, but the only reason I'm desiring is not because I'm desiring it. See, that does make sense, does it? I'm desiring it, but then it's not my desire. So then if it's not my desire, it's because it's God's desire that He planted in my heart. And the reason I'm desiring it is not because it's my desire, it's because it's God's desire for me and my life. It's a desire that God planted in the garden of my heart. So, or on the other hand, if I'm desiring something and it's just not God's desire for me in my life, and I'm only desiring only what I desire, and it's just not the same thing that God is desiring for me in my life, it's not liable that it will come to fruition, where it's if what I'm desiring in my heart is the same thing as what God is desiring. In other words, if it's God's desire from me in my life, then there's a better chance it's going to come to fruition, because it's God's desire, not mine. And so, if I desire something in life, I have to desire something that the same thing that God desires. Otherwise, it won't happen. If I desire something that's not, God doesn't desire it for me, if that's not the same desire God has, it just will never happen. But if I'm desiring something, and if what I'm desiring is the same thing that what God is desiring for me, the better chance is going to come to fruition. But then when I have a desire in my heart, how do I know that it's God's desire He put there and not my own? And another thing I struggle with, I always say, I speak the Most High and ask Him, Most High, speak to my heart, and He never speaks to my heart. He never speaks to my heart, or maybe He does speak to my heart, and then I'm just not able to pick up on it. So How do I recognize when the Most High is even speaking to my heart? How do I recognize when the Most High is speaking to my heart? Because I ask God, I ask the Most High speak to my heart, and He never speaks to my heart. Or maybe He does speak to my heart, but I'm just not picking up on it. I'm not picking up on the signals. So, how do I recognize when the Most High speaking to my heart? How am I able to tell when the Most High is speaking to my heart, and what is He saying to my heart? What is He saying? They say that God can speak to the heart of a person. So, okay, who do I hear from God? Like, how does He speak to my heart? I say many times, speak to my heart, God, and I say, God never speaks to my heart. Or maybe He does speak to my heart, but for some reason, I'm just not able to recognize His voice. And one thing I know that I would like to make sure, I'd like to be sure that if there's a desire that's in my heart, it's not my own desire, but it's God's desire. So how am I able to tell the difference between my own desire and God's desire? I mean, how am I able to tell whether a desire in my heart is from God, and God put that desire in my heart, that's really His desire? How do I know God's desire from my own desire? I mean, how do I tell them apart? There's a desire in my heart, right? There's a desire in my heart. Well, how do I tell the difference between whether it's God's desire or it's just my own desire? And is there a way I can tell the difference? And if so, how? Drop a comment below. Drop a comment below in the comment section of the comment box. But that's just it. It's just, I'd like to be sure that whatever I desire in life is not just my own desire, but it's the desire of God. Because unless what I'm desiring in life is really God's desire, it's never gonna come to fruition. But on the other hand, if what I desire is the same thing that God desires, then if I desire what God desires, it's not my desire, it's God's desire. And the reason I'm desiring it, not because of my desire, because it's not my desire. The reason I'm desiring it is because it's God's desire. And because God is one that put that as His desire, He put His desire in my heart, and that's why I'm desiring it, because He put His desire for me in my life, in my heart, and so I'm desiring not my own desire, but I'm desiring God's desire. So I'm desiring God's desire. So I'm not desiring my own desire, but I'm desiring God's desire for me in my life. So how do I tell the difference? If I desire something, how do I tell if it's really God's desire that He put in my heart, or it's just my own desire? How do I tell the difference? How do I know God's desire from my own desire? Because I have certain desires, and I just like to make sure that those desires I have in my heart are from God. And God is the one who put those desires there, because the only way they're going to come to fruition is if they are God's desires for me in my life. If they're just my own desires, they're not going to happen, not if they're my own desires, but if they're God's desires, it's a better chance that they will happen, because they're not my desires, they're God's desires that God put in my heart. And so I'm not really desiring my desire, but I'm really desiring God's desires. They're not really my own desires, they're God's desires, and they'll come true because they're not my desires, but God's desires. And the only reason I'm desiring them is because God put that desire in my heart. God put that desire in my heart, and that's why I desire it, because God is one, and so I'm really desiring something that God desires. It's His desire. He put that in my heart, and that's why I'm desiring it. Where if it's just my own desire, and it's not God's desire, but my own desire, truth is, it's amazing. It just won't come to pass or to fruition. So I'd like to be sure. So how do I tell the difference between a desire that God put there, God's desire, and just my own desire? Is it God's desire that I'm desiring, or it's just my own desire? Because my own desire will not come to fruition. But if it's God's desire that I'm desiring, it's more likely it will come to fruition, because it's not my desire, but God's desire. So it's more likely it will come to fruition. Whereas if it's my desire and not God's desire, it won't come to fruition, because it's not God's desire, it's my own desire. And so if it's my own desire and not God's desire, chances are it's not going to come to fruition. But if it's God's desire, they put in my heart, and I'm desiring a desire that God put in my heart. In other words, it's not my desire, it's God's desire I'm desiring. Chances are it's liable to come to fruition, because it's not my desire I'm desiring, but it's. So how do I tell the difference between is it really God's desire, or is it just my own desire? And how do I tell the difference between God's desire that He put in my heart and my own desire, which if it's my own desire, it won't come to fruition. On the other hand, if it is truly God's desire that I'm desiring, it will come to fruition not because it's my desire. I'm not desiring my own desire, but I'm desiring a desire that's in my heart that is of my own, but it's a desire, it's God's desire that God put in my heart, and so that's why I desire it. But then how do I tell if a desire is really from the Most High God of heaven, or it's just my own desire? That's what I mean. And if there's someone that can, on the other side, they can help me to distinguish between my own desires and those of God's own desires, Yah's own desires, please drop a few lines in the comment section or comment box. Much appreciated. God bless.